The phone shattered the silence of my one-bedroom in Queens like a gunshot, vibrating off the nightstand at 2:17 a.m. I bolted upright, heart slamming against my ribs, half expecting the worst. Another family emergency from back home in Miami, or the kind of call no one wants after midnight. Elias. His voice cracked through the line, raw and ragged. The man I'd spent 3 years idolizing from afar. The one who'd built walls higher than the skyline. I need you. God. I can't do this alone. I was out the door before reason could catch up. The autumn chill biting through my hoodie as I hailed a cab into the empty streets of Manhattan. Mateo Callahan, my boss, my torment, the straight arrow exec who'd climbed the corporate ladder at Vanguard Media like it was his personal Everest, had never called me outside office hours. Not for the late-night deadlines we'd crushed together. Not for the whiskey-fueled team-building retreats in the Hamptons where I'd stolen glances at the way his laugh lines crinkled under the firelight. He was married to Claire, the poised lawyer with the perfect bob and the life that screamed Upper East Side stability. 2 kids, a brownstone, the whole American dream I'd learned to envy from the sidelines. And me, Elias Rivera, the sharp-tongued creative director who'd clawed his way up from freelance gigs in Bushwick, gay as the day is long, and nursing a crush that felt more like a chronic ache than anything sustainable. The cab dropped me at his office tower on Park Avenue, the lobby a ghost town of marble and muted fluorescence. Security buzzed me up, perks of being his right hand, and there he was, slumped in the corner conference room overlooking the dormant city. The table was littered with half-empty coffee cups and crumpled spreadsheets, the air thick with the stale bite of scotch. Mateo looked up as I entered, his blue eyes bloodshot, tie askew like he'd been wrestling demons all night. "You came," he said, voice barely above a whisper. And in that moment, I hated how much I wanted to believe it meant something more. We'd met 3 years ago at my interview, him in a crisp navy suit that hugged his broad shoulders just right, me in thrift store slacks praying I wouldn't sweat through them. Vanguard was the kind of media conglomerate that churned out glossy ads for luxury cars and craft beers, the heartbeat of Madison Avenue ambition. Mateo ran the creative division with a mix of Irish blarney and steel-fisted deadlines. The guy who could charm a client over lunch at Delmonico's and then eviscerate a pitch in the afternoon boardroom. I fell hard, fast. Those late nights mocking up campaigns, his hand brushing mine over a mock-up, the way he'd linger on my ideas like they were the only ones that mattered. But he was straight, married, untouchable. I buried it deep, channeling the fire into work that won us Clio awards and corner offices. Until tonight. He poured me a tumbler without asking, the amber liquid sloshing like an accusation. "Claire's leaving me," he said, staring into the glass as if it held the secrets to his unraveling. Found texts from that intern last summer. It was nothing, flirting, stupid ego stuff, but she saw the pattern. The late nights, the work wives jokes from the team. "She's packing the kids up to her sister's in Boston tomorrow." His laugh was bitter, hollow. "And the worst part? I don't even miss her yet. I miss the fight in it all." I sipped the scotch, letting it burn down my throat, buying time to steady the storm in my chest. This was Mateo unfiltered, the man behind the boardroom bravado, the one who'd confessed over rooftop beers about his Catholic guilt. His dad dying young in a Queens factory accident, leaving him to prove he could outrun the working-class ghosts. I'd always listened, offered quiet nods, the safe harbor for his straight guy confessions. But now, with his knee inches from mine under the table, the air crackled with something dangerous. "Why me?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "You could have called your brother, or a lawyer." He met my eyes then, and the weight of it pinned me. Vulnerability stripped bare, like the city lights fracturing off the East River below. "Because you see me, Elias. Not the title, not the ring. You. Every damn time I walk into that bullpen, it's your sketches on the wall that make me believe we're building something real. Not just ads. Legacy." He reached across, his fingers grazing my wrist, calloused from weekend golf with the execs, warm against my pulse. I froze, the touch igniting years of what-ifs, the fantasies I'd shoved into late-night runs along the Hudson. We talked until dawn smeared gray across the skyline, words tumbling out like debris from a wreck. He spoke of the marriage as a cage he'd built himself, Claire's expectations, the kids' soccer games he half resented, the promotion that came at the cost of his soul. I shared fragments of my own scars. Coming out to my abuela in a humid Miami kitchen, her rosary clicking like judgment. The ex who'd ghosted me after Pride, leaving me to pick up glitter from the sheets alone. It felt like confession, two souls colliding in the fluorescent hush, and when he leaned in, hesitant, searching, our lips met in a kiss that tasted of scotch and surrender. Soft at first, then desperate. His hands framing my face like I was the anchor he'd been adrift without. For weeks after, it was a fever dream wrapped in secrecy. Stolen lunches in Central Park, where he'd feed me bites of his pastrami on rye, our knees brushing under the picnic blanket. Late-night drives upstate, windows down, Springsteen blasting as we chased fireflies in the Catskills. His arms slung casual over my seat like it belonged there. He called it figuring things out, whispered, "I love you," in the dark of my apartment. His body curling into mine with a tenderness that mended cracks I didn't know were there. I believed him, God, how I believed, because Mateo had always been the man who delivered, the one who turned chaos into gold. We were rewriting the script. Straight guy meets his awakening. Gay underling becomes the love that saves him. It was romantic, reckless, the kind of story that could have played out in some indie flick at Tribeca, with a swelling indie folk score. But America doesn't hand out happy endings without a fight, and ours came laced with the grit of reality. Claire didn't leave quietly. She hired a PI, the kind who lurked in coffee shops with telephoto lenses, capturing blurs of us at that hole-in-the-wall taqueria in the village. The photos landed in my inbox one Tuesday morning, forwarded from HR with a terse note. Immediate review required. My stomach dropped like the express elevator in his building. Mateo swore it was a bluff, that he'd handle it. Divorce papers were drafting, he'd come out to the board, frame it as personal growth. "We're in this," he said, pulling me close in the supply closet, our breaths sinking like a promise. The betrayal hit like a nor'easter off the Atlantic. It was the night of the Vanguard Holiday Gala, the Waldorf's grand ballroom dripping in crystal and caviar, execs in tuxes toasting another billion-dollar quarter. I was there as his plus one, officially his creative lead, in a borrowed suit that pinched at the shoulders. Claire arrived unannounced, a vision in emerald silk, her arm looped through his brother Sean's, the family fixer. She cornered me by the ice sculpture, her voice silk over steel. He told me everything, Elias, how you were his experiment, the thrill to spice up the boredom. Said it was never real, just a phase until he got his head straight. Her eyes, sharp as cut glass, bored into me. "Leave now, or I drag this through every paper from here to LA. Think of your career." His kids. I searched for him across the room, the crowd parting like a bad dream. There he was, laughing with the CEO, his hand on Claire's waist as if the last month had been a glitch. When our eyes locked, his face crumpled, just for a second, before he looked away, mouthing later like a coward's prayer. The gala blurred into nausea, champagne turning sour in my gut. I slipped out into the November sleet, hailing a cab back to Queens, the city lights streaking like accusations. My phone buzzed the whole ride. "Wait, please, it's not what you think." But I knew. The straight married boss had reached out, reached for the escape hatch, the easy out. I'd been the fool who answered, pouring my heart into a man too scared to claim it. The climax crashed down 2 days later, on those rain-lashed steps of the Brooklyn Bridge, the span that connected my scrappy borough to his polished world. I texted him one line, "Meet me, end this right." And he came, of course, because Mateo always showed for the finale. The wind whipped off the harbor, carrying the tang of salt and regret, as he stumbled from his Audi, collar open, eyes haunted. "Elias," I panicked. "Claire threatened custody, the job, everything I've built. But it's you. It was always. Save it." I cut him off, voice cracking like thunder. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, mingling with the tears he didn't bother hiding. I stepped closer, close enough to smell his cologne mixed with desperation, and grabbed his lapels. The same way he'd grabbed my heart. "You called me at 2 a.m., Mateo. You kissed me under the stars and said we were real. Was that the phase? The intern 2.0. My throat tightened, the words I'd rehearsed dissolving into raw hurt. He pulled me in, forehead to forehead, the city humming indifferent below us. It was real, he choked out, his hands trembling on my arms. But I'm a coward, raised to provide, to protect, not to burn it all down for. For this. He gestured between us, the this that had felt like salvation. I love you, Elias.
Christ, Ido.
But Claire's right, I used you to feel alive. And now, I've lost you both. The fight drained out of me then, replaced by a profound, aching clarity. I pushed him back gently, the rain of veil between us, and saw him. Not the boss, not the husband, but the broken man who'd mirrored my own fears. We'd both been chasing illusions. Him, the perfect life. Me, the straight guy who could bend without breaking. Go home, I whispered, the words a release. Fix what you can. And maybe one day, figure out who you are without the script. He nodded, shattered, turning back to the car as the storm raged on. I watched him go, the taillights fading into the blur, then walked the bridge alone, the cables humming like a dirge. Betrayal stung, sure, the sharp twist of being the secret, the disposable thrill. But in the quiet aftermath, as the first light cracked the horizon, I felt something humanistic bloom. Forgiveness, not for him, but for us both. We dared to love across lines drawn in ink and expectation, and in that daring we'd humanized each other. Mateo would return to his brownstone, wrestle his truths in therapy sessions and custody battles, maybe even call again someday. Not in crisis, but in clarity. And me? I'd keep climbing, sketches in hand, heart a little wiser, open to the loves that didn't need midnight calls to prove they were real. Back in Queens, I poured coffee black as the night we'd lost, and started a new campaign. One about reinvention, raw and unapologetic. Because in this city of reinventions, we'd all been straight once. Straight lines to nowhere until we curved toward the light. And that, in the end, was the romance worth chasing.